Hello everybody, today I'm going to be doing a review of the Amazing Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1. This volume is basically the early stories of Spider-Man. All are written by Stan Lee, most are drawn by Steve Ditko, with Jack Kirby doing a few stories here and there. With all that over-dramaticness out of the way, this is a nice collection of the entire Stan Lee and Steve Ditko run on Spider-Man, and because of that, I think it's a must-own omnibus volume. But, of course, there's so much to talk about in such a big book that I will instead show off my favorite stories. So, favorite story number 1, Amazing Fantasy number 15. I shouldn't have to explain this if you read comics, but for those who don't, this is the origin story of Spider-Man, the one we all know and love. So, one of the things I find fascinating about this is that normally with superhero origin stories, they change a lot over time. But this one is one that's remotely stayed the same since its original appearance. So next on my favorites list is The Amazing Spider-Man issue number 6, the first appearance of the Lizard, one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. Again, this is another story where the character's original inception has mostly stayed the same since then, and it's a very fun story. It's very good, got good writing, good artwork. This is when the art got a lot better, because the artwork in the first 5 issues, to be honest, it's really not up to the standards we expect from Steve Ditko. That's probably because he was just starting with Spider-Man. Then, for my next favorite, Spider-Man issue 13, first appearance of Mysterio. Guy with a really corny costume, no motivation to be a villain at all in this particular story, but I love him just because his gimmick is cool, which is he's a bad guy, and he uses movie special effects to trick Spider-Man into thinking things. I don't know, but it's cool. I like him, even though he's kind of goofy, but yeah, that's why this is one of my favorite issues, just because Mysterio's a fun villain. Issue 14. This is another favorite of mine. The first appearance of Green Goblin. Another sillier story. And again, it has something to do with movies. The plot of this issue is Green Goblin tricks a movie producer into thinking he will be the villain in a Spider-Man movie with the real Spider-Man starring in it. And it will also feature the real enforcers. So then, somehow he manages to convince Spider-Man to join in on this, and then they go out to New Mexico to film. But little does Spider-Man know that they are the real bad guys, and they are gonna try to destroy or kill or whatever they want to do to Spider-Man. They're gonna do it out in New Mexico, and then they end up in a cave, and then they end up finding the Hulk in the cave, because the Hulk is essentially just a hobo in the Marvel Universe. And then, yeah, that's about it. It's these stories are really goofy, but that's what I like about them. But it's not to say they aren't always serious, aren't always goofy. I mean, they do have very serious moments. In fact, I'd say most of the time they're relatively serious, but there are some more outlandish parts in them. Then you have issue number 1 of Spider-Man Annual, or I guess the first annual, I don't know, but this has the first story with the Sinister Six, and boy, it's a fun one. It's basically just the Sinister Six team up to fight Spider-Man, and it's fun. And this is when the art truly got amazing. Like, seriously, just look at that. That's just beautiful right there. All these splash pages are super nice looking. So yeah, another good thing about Annual number 1, it has a rogues gallery, so you can see these beautiful pinups featuring all of Spider-Man's villains that appeared up to that point. So you can take a good look at these by pausing, but that's just what I say, because I'm not going to go through all those. Then you also have Secrets of Spider-Man. Have Spider-Man explain his powers to you. Very cool stuff. Love that page there. Then you have some pinups and a little story talking about how Stan Lee and Steve Ditko make issues of Spider-Man. Issue 17, Return of the Green Goblin. This issue kind of starts the first story arc for Spider-Man in a way. The plot of it is basically the Green Goblin invades a meeting of Flash Thompson's newly formed Spider-Man fan club, and the real Spider-Man was there, not expecting the Goblin to show up. But Peter Parker has been having lots of issues lately, and even Spider-Man has, as the whole town hates Spider-Man for interrupting a filming of a movie. And then when Peter Parker finds out while there that his Aunt May is ill and needs him, he immediately just leaves the battle while Human Torch was helping him fight the Green Goblin. And because of that, now the town hates him even more. Joy. And then issue 18 sees Spider-Man fall into an even deeper pile of crap. And almost quits. But he decides, after hearing some words from Aunt May, that he should be Spider-Man again. Then you have issue 23, another favorite of mine. This one is just a Green Goblin story, very standard one. Basically, Green Goblin wants to become the crime overlord in New York, but they aren't just gonna give all that power to Green Goblin, and I forgot what the rest happened, what the rest of this issue was, but all I remember is Green Goblin trying to take over the mobs and Spider-Man having a fun fight with him, because their first fight was admittedly not really about the Green Goblin. It was mostly about the other guys, but yeah. Issue 24, another favorite of mine. I love this issue because Spider-Man thinks he's going mad, and at the end of it, there's a great plot twist. Oh, I don't even want to spoil it. It's actually a genuinely good plot twist that I didn't see coming in the slightest. I'm not even being sarcastic, I just sound sarcastic while I'm filming for some reason. But then issue 26, we have the Crime Master. His first introduction to the world, and he gets killed off in the next issue, but it also has the Green Goblin, who again wants to take over the underground crime of New York. And it's a great little two-part mystery that lasts from issues 26 to 27. And we even get Green Goblin capturing Spider-Man, and yeah. Very fun issues. I like them a lot. Then annual number 2, which has Doctor Strange in it. This issue is basically just a Doctor Strange comic featuring Spider-Man, but despite me not knowing much about Doctor Strange, I can appreciate the story for the beautiful psychedelic artwork provided by Steve Ditko and the fun team-up between Spidey and Doctor Strange himself. So yes, very fun annual. And just like the first annual, you get a gallery of more villains, this time being the villains had appeared since the first annual. Then the next one. This, being serious here for just a moment, the issues 31 to 33, these are some of my favorites, and these are actually some of the best Spider-Man stories. They represent everything I love about this character, and they're required reads just as much as Amazing Fantasy 15 is. I won't try to spoil the plot, but basically the plot is Aunt May is dying, and the only cure has been stolen by Dr. Octopus, and Spider-Man needs to get it back. But he doesn't know Dr. Octopus stole it. He's just going by the name Master Planner. And then Spider-Man eventually gets stuck in Dr. Octopus's underwater base while it's collapsing, and Spider-Man has to free himself with all of his strength that he has. And that's what I really like about this issue. It shows Spider-Man isn't the most powerful hero, but my god will he try to save the day. Issue 36. This is one of my favorites, just because it's another simple little fun issue. The plot is basically a guy, I forgot his name, but who cares. The guy gets a blast of meteor gas in his face, and that gives him superpowers, so he starts to steal stuff because of it and calls himself the Looter. But then he needs to get another meteor from a museum because he's scared he'll lose his power. But of course, Spider-Man stops him. Then you have issue 37. This is another important issue. This is the first appearance of Norman Osborn, and it basically says everything you need to know about Norman Osborn, that he's a greedy, dirty businessman, and it also implies that there's a greater secret that we don't know about him yet. So one of the things I love about this volume is you get all the letters pages, so you can read all the stuff people complained about, or praised, or said about Spider-Man back in his early days, which is interesting. You also get some cool bonuses, like unused artwork, original page art, pictures of the Marvel crew back in the day, some reprint covers, which I really like that, and an Alex Ross cover. So yes, that is the Spider-Man Omnibus #1.